Hello everyone and welcome to this TT Setup webinar. I'm Michael Riley with the Training and UX team here in Singapore. This is part 2 on our series on TT Setup, and today we'll be covering some more in-depth topics within Setup and really building on what was covered in part 1. Similar to the first webinar on Setup, the target audience is going to be administrators. This is because full admin privileges will be needed to make the modifications that we'll be discussing today. As in other webinars, I would like to point out that if you go to tradingtechnologies.com, we do have some great documentation. So if we look at trading infrastructure, data, markets, and resources, under resources, we will see documentation. And from here, we scroll down a little bit. There is a number of categories that we can select from, and we'll be looking at setup primarily here. So I'm going to click on View Documentation. And from here, each one of these is a link to additional documentation. I believe in the previous one, we primarily covered connections, accounts, users, and so forth. Today, the primary focus is going to be order tag defaults and risk administration. So do keep that resource in mind as it is quite a bit of information available to you there. Also, this webinar will be taking place in the setup portion of the platform. So if you go to trade.tt, that will take you to a workspace launch page that looks similar to this. And across the top, we have Trade, ADL, Backtest, Monitor, and Setup. And if you click on Setup, that will take you to the Setup portion, in this case, defaulting to the User section. This will kind of be our jumping off point for the webinar. The topics today, you can see those on screen here. First up will be the order tag defaults, or OTDs. What these will do is they'll allow us to modify the data or values that are attached to the orders that are sent to the exchange. We set some individual fields in the last webinar. However, the OTD section will allow us to do is to set additional default values, make copies of those values, and edit those values in mass, and add them to specific order profiles as well. We'll also be looking at the limits manager, and our limits manager will allow us to search for specific limits that we have already set, as well as add, copy, and delete limits that already exist on users and accounts. We'll then get into margins and inter-product margin. So we'll set the margin levels at the exchange and product level for the entire company that we exist in, as well as set the inter-product margin as well. This will lead us to the final section of the webinar, which will be the file upload features that we have. The upload feature should increase efficiency for admins, as it's certainly a lot easier to upload a single file with the account balances of multiple accounts versus going in and setting each one manually. So we'll touch on the margin file upload, the credit upload, the SOD file upload, and how we can really make all these changes in mass and hopefully save everyone some time. Okay, so first up will be the order tag defaults. And a moment ago I mentioned information sent to the exchange. Now, with regards to order tag defaults, we're not talking about price, quantity, and instrument. From this perspective, we're talking about more details that the exchange might require, and these kinds of details are going to be found on the Exchanges tab. So, first off, I'm in the setup portion. I'm looking at users. I'm looking at my particular user, and then we have our sub tabs running across from left to right. If any of this is unfamiliar to you, I would recommend going back and reviewing part 1. We did cover the layout. We covered the the display that we have here and the sub tabs and so forth. So if this is unfamiliar to you, I would recommend that part 1 webinar. In this case, we're going to go look at that Exchanges tab. And as we talked about in that first webinar, a major component of this tab is going to be the market data settings, which are set on a per user basis. So generally exchanges, select the exchange, and now I've got my subscriber market data and whatever settings that I may have for this particular user. Now, if we go to the right on this sub-tab group here, I'm going to go to order routing. And from here, we'll see a number of fields that need to be populated, again, on the user side for this particular exchange. So most notably for CME, operator ID, ATS operator, a number of fields that run down here. Now, in this case, this is the user side of things. However, if I go over to the accounts, I will also have another Exchanges tab. So I'm going to select that here. I'm looking at my parent account in this case. I have a parent account and I have 5 sub-accounts. We'll start with a parent in this in this drop-down. We'll get the CME selected. And here we'll see a much longer list of exchange properties that can be set. We do see CTI, we see origin are currently populated, and a number of other fields actually are populated as well. Now, these fields are all set at the account side And what we'll be able to do in a moment from the order tag default side is we'll be able to view these somewhat in mass. So not on a specific account, but we'll be able to see it on a specific account, but we'll see multiple accounts all at the same time, and then we'll be able to modify these fields, all at the same time as well. Before we move over to those, I did point out we have CTI and origin and a number of fields populated here. If I go down to these these child accounts, so account 1, 2, and 3 in this case, we do have CTI and we do have origin showing member trader and customer. Notice the red text indicating the value has been set at the parent account, MRT. And that is because when we are looking at these fields, we do have an apply to all sub-accounts checkbox here. Now this is checked on both of these two fields. It's not checked on the rest of them. So we will be able to see both what it looks like on the order tag defaults if this is checked and is not checked. We'll most notably be modifying the clearing account field on some of the sub-accounts because as we go and look at account 1, for example, we do have the clearing account field is blank. So we'll be setting that from the order tag default side as well. So again, on account 1, only CTI and origin are currently set. So what we'll do is we'll move over to the order tag defaults now. So if I go down the left side of the screen, I do have a more drop down, and then we have an order tag defaults option. And before we get into the list, we're actually going to go to the order tag default verification, and not to be redundant, but we're going to again see what we have set for this particular account. So for the account, I'm going to go to MR test 1, and I'll set my user. And we'll be going with the default profile, and then we'll just do an asterisk for these other fields. And let's do CL, for example. Now, what we're really saying here is if there was a hypothetical trade by this user on this account with this particular profile on this particular product, what order tags are out there, what would be sent with that particular order. So as I click on search, oops, missed a field there. Just try it again. So if I click on search, what we see lines up with what we saw a moment ago. So we have the CTI set to member trader, and we have the origin set to customer. There's nothing else set, so this is all we should really expect to see at this point. Okay. Now we are going to go back to the left side, and we'll go to the OTD list, order tag default list in this case. And I'm in a trading technologies company, so lots of users and accounts been created over the years. So we have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of order tag defaults. So I've actually got this somewhat filtered down already. And what we see is going to be the account. I've got it filtered down, by the way, on account and exchange, CME to keep that in focus. And then on the account, I've got the first two lines are going to be account 1, followed by a number of settings for account 2 and account 3. Now, just to reiterate again, on that OTD verification, we only saw 2 fields that were populated. So if I look at my 2 lines here for the existing order tag defaults, I can scroll to the right and we'll look under field and value. And again, we see CTI, member trader, and we see origin set to customer. So exactly as we would expect to see. And then I would also point out that we have restricted by, which indicates that this is set by some other restriction. And that was set by the restriction of the parent account, checking that box and saying that it is applied to the child accounts. So this order tag of 3690776 is really instilling the CTI member trader setting on this particular account. Now, if we go down and we kind of expand our view here, we can also take a look at all of the fields on account 2. So currently, those are all the ones that are in focus here. We still do have the filter on for the CME. As I scroll to the right, under field, we do have CTI, origin, and a number of other fields that we have set on this particular account as well. Note again, CTI and origin is being locked in by those same tags from the parent account. So 776 and 776 for both CTI fields and 777 for both of those origins. Now, again, kind of reiterating that these are, the first 2 are set by a parent account. I would actually like to go to the 3rd line here for MR test 2. And as I scroll out, we do see that customer order handling, this particular field, customer order handling instruction is currently set to desk. Now, as I click on that particular line, we will see additional information populate down below. So this is the actual order tag defaults. So what we will see here is the same information that we see running left to right. So now we're going to see it in a vertical form, and we'll actually be able to see the drop downs for some of the values that this can actually be applied to. So in this case, we see the profile is set to default, the account is set to MR test 2, and the exchange is already locked in on the CME. Now, now with this key, if I go further down, we can see all of the fields that are available that can be set for this particular tag. Now, in this case, it was the customer order handling instruction set to desk. So if I scroll down, I can actually go to that particular field indicated here. And if I double click, I can then modify that particular value. And then I have the option to save changes. And if I click save changes, if I were to go back to that particular account, we can set that to CME. And as we scroll down, we will then see electronic. So we've modified this from a different location, from the order tags going into the specific account field on the exchanges tab, okay? Going back to that order tag default list one more time here. There we go. We did see that we only have these two lines or these two defaults for test 1 account. So if we wanted to go ahead and set that clearing account value for that test 1 account, we can go to the top here where we see it. We do have a couple of buttons. So new order tag default, copy, bulk copy, and delete. Obviously, those two are grayed out currently. So I'm going to go ahead and use the new order tag default. And what's going to populate here is that same set of keys in order to set this particular order tag default. So at the top here, we do have profile, and we can set this on a per profile basis. These can be profiles that you can select within the front end as well, and then that would kind of set which defaults are going to be used. But in this case, what we're going to go is we're going to go down to account and go to MR test. And by the way, as you start to populate these various fields, the order tag default, the profile, algo type, algo name, and so forth, none of this will populate down in the fields until a exchange is selected. So that's really going to have the exact profile of what can be sent, because eventually this information will be sent to an exchange. So the fields are going to be somewhat exchange based. So in this case, MR test 1, CME, and as we scroll down, we do see that CTI and origin showing number, trader, and customer. And then we can go down to the clearing account, and we can set that as 4321 as our clearing account. And if I save that change, as we would expect, we can then go back to that particular account, again, MR test 1, and exchanges and CME. And then we will see that clearing account modified there as well. Now, it's important to note, as I'm doing this and it's changing back on the account, this is very much because we are looking at this on a profile just set to default. So default is really just very much the default values that we are going to be applying. Therefore, it's ending up back on that particular account. If we were specifying this for some other value that was not account specific, those values wouldn't necessarily be showing up back on that account. Okay. You'll also notice now that added that particular order tag default. We now have 3 lines here showing up in our order tag default list. So test 1, and test 1. As we scroll to the right, we still see the CTI, member trader, origin customer, and now we have clearing account 4321. So one more thing, as we are looking at adding profile order default tags, what we're able to also take a look at here, we were adding all of this last tag as a default profile. What we can actually do here as well is that if we click the drop down for profile, we can also add new. So what we're able to do is create an admin level profile for this particular, say MR222, for this particular order tag default or series of defaults that we might want to create. So I'll call this profile MR222, and as I create that profile, what we can do is then go down and select our clearing account, and let's say that clearing account needs to be 222 in this case, and I can then save that change. And as we go back up here, again, we'll see in our list the MR222, MR test 1, and as we scroll out, the clearing account will be 222. So with this clearing account set to 222, we can go back and actually look at a workspace itself. And if we go to Edit and Order Profiles, we'll see our order profiles appear here. And if we go to the admin rules for that profile MR222, we will see that clearing account is now locked in as 222, and then that message would be sent when that profile is selected in the profile dropdown in the upper left of our MD trader in this case, or in the profile dropdown in our order ticket as well. Now, if we go back to the exchanges in this particular case and we go to CME, we will see that the clearing account in this case is blank. It is not going to reflect that same order tag default. Again, because we had applied this with the particular profile of MR222, so even though it's on MR test 1, we are actually setting this at almost a higher level in the logic. So as we scroll down, we do see that clearing account is 222, but not applied at the exact account level within setup. What we're also able to do here is we are able to edit all blank fields for an exchange as well. So using this optional show blank fields checkbox in the upper right here, what we're able to do is identify and edit exchange parameters with missing values across all profiles at the same time. So to edit all the blank fields for a particular exchange, we can show the blank fields by checking the box, and then we're going to ensure that at least one exchange is going to be set. So we'll get rid of the account filter in this case, but we will keep the CME filter on. Now, as I scroll to the right here, what we will notice is that we do have the fields populated here. However, none of the values are there, obviously indicating that these are the blank values that we have for the CME. In this case, what we're going to be setting is going to be set for the default profile in this case. So what we're going to be setting will be, let's say, the operator ID. Now, as we select that operator ID, we can scroll down, and again, we see order tag default, profile set to default, exchange set to CME, and as we go down, we can say the origin, we can set it to customer, and as we save that change, that is then going to be applied as the default across the board. So once that change goes in, the change value are saved across all applicable profiles displayed in the data grid, in this case, the default profile. It's also going to be possible to do mass editing of order tag defaults. So in this case, we're still filtered for the CME, but if we needed to, let's say we need to set that clearing account field for multiple accounts all at the same time, what we could do is we could select as many accounts as we needed to make the change to, or make the mass edit to. And if I click OK, we're going to then start to filter down for this particular account and for these particular exchanges. Let me get rid of the show blanks for a moment here. So we've got account 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. And as I scroll to the right, we can further change the field. So we'll do clearing account. So here we only have the one line, as we only have a single entry for clearing account, which is the 222 that we created earlier. So if I check the show fields with blank values, again, we are filtered for account 1 through 4 in this case. However, these do not have a value populated. So we're able to now see these additional lines for each one of these particular accounts, and in this case on the default profile, as well as that MR222 profile. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the boxes for these additional accounts on the default profile. And then as I scroll down, we'll see that we only have the one field specified for the clearing account, which is what we filtered for a moment ago up above. And then for the value, we can enter in that particular value and click Save Changes. And now we'll be adding 654321 as our clearing account for each one of these order default profiles. And as we go back to the top, scroll to the right. Okay, so we did catch an error on the saving there a moment ago. The correction here would be that we were using these show fields with blank values, and we did not have any values populated in the clearing account field. Now in this case, we do have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If we needed to get all of these tags to be reflecting the same clearing account value, what we can do is we can check the boxes for these particular tags, whether it be default or the MR222 profile, again for these 4 accounts, Now, as we go down, we do see in the field for clearing account that the values differ, which is to be expected. And let's say that the 654321 value for the clearing account is what we are looking to have here. We can enter that value in, and then we can save that change. And as we scroll back to the top, we can scroll to the right, and now we see that that change, that mass edit has been completed, and we can see that proper clearing account on that value. Finally, if we are looking at, well, let's reduce the number of accounts that we are currently showing here, and we'll get this back to just the MR test 1 account. If we are just looking at these two lines here for MR test 1, let's also remove this clearing account filter here. So we can see all of the tags that we currently have that are applied to this MR test 1. If we are going to be replicating out the tags to multiple accounts, what we can do, in this case, we've got these 3 for the default. So at the top, we can do a bulk copy as well of these particular tags. So we'll be doing this on an account basis in this case. So we can do a copy from account and say MR test 1, and we can then apply them to MR test 5. Click OK. And we won't do any additional filters in this. Actually, we'll do a profile filter in this case just for default. And we'll zoomed in here. There we go. And as I make that copy, you'll see that there was 1 record copied over. So in this case, if we go to the right here, we do have those first 2 that are the order tag defaults that came down from the parent account. So we really just have the clearing account in this case. We did set that filter based on default. So if we go and we then add the MR test 5 in this case, we should just see the same tags for the default section. So the first 3 should match the bottom 3 in this case. And as we go to the right, member, trader, and customer, member, trader, and customer, again, those are inherited by the parent account. And then we do have that clearing account 654321 applied as well. Individual tags certainly can be copied as well. That was the bulk copy option that we just looked at. If we needed to just specify a single, we could certainly do that as well. MR test. So we apply that to number 6. So we could do, actually, we could do save and add new. This would allow us to, so let's say it goes through there. And then if we needed to delete any of these order tags that we have created, we can certainly specify which tags by checking the checkbox. You'll note that the first 2, again, these were the inherited values, so I could just select that one that needs to be deleted, delete that, and it will be removed accordingly. Okay, so if we go to the upper left corner of the setup window, we do have users, accounts, limits, and connections. So up next here is going to be this limits section, or the limits manager. And what we're able to do with the limits section is going to be able to add limits. We're going to be able to search for limits. We're going to be able to copy and kind of replicate them out over various accounts, and we'll be able to delete them as well. This really gives us, the ability to search, throughout every single account or every user for a particular limit, and really save us some time. So as a very quick refresh, if we go to users and we're looking at a specific user, we do have a limits tab. Now, if we were to create a limit here, we would check the apply limits checkbox, which means every order that passes through or is placed by this user would have to pass the risk checks. Now, in this case, there are no limits in place, so every order would be rejected, and we would then have to add a limit in order for the orders to pass through. Now, generally speaking, the limits are really set on the account side. So in this case, I'm going to flip over to the accounts, and I will flip over to this parent account that I've been using. And for the accounts, again, there is a limits tab, and we will check that apply limits checkbox. We'll click add, and again, we'll use this CME CL example. I won't specify the contract because then we would have to roll it every single month. And I will click add, and now this is added a line item limit for this particular account. Now, as I scroll down, the actual values need to be set in the various fields. So I will say 25 will be the limit, limit for the family, and limit for the product. And then I will enable trading allowed, and let's say a max click size of 10. Now that's a single limit for a single product on this particular account. Now if I had to do that for 50 new traders, for example, that might be rather tiresome. So what we're able to do is now go back to the limit section here, and we have options for a new limit, search for limits, and so forth. So if I just want to search for a particular limit, this would allow me to just find out who has limits in place and who does not. So I'm going to refine a limit search here. So I will be searching on accounts, and let's say we'll specify again the particular accounts that I have. We have quite a few accounts, so the scan might take quite a while. So I'll specify accounts 1 through 5, my 5 child accounts, and actually from there we can leave the exchange open as well as the product type and so forth. So I'll go ahead and click search, and there we go. So now, without going into each specific account, which can be a bit tiresome, like I said, we can just see that there is a limit for CL, ES, CL, and ES on accounts numbers 1 and 2. I believe the limit I just set was actually on the parent account, but nevertheless, we can see which limits are out there and on which accounts. And then as we scroll down, I'm selecting the first one, and as we scroll down, we can actually see the exact product that we are looking at here with the Market Explorer, and then we can see that same layout as to how the actual limits are set. So we can max position family, we can set max position product. Currently, these are both set to 150. If we wanted to go through, we've searched, but now if we need to modify all of these, let's say that all of these limits need to be reduced. 150 and 100 is too much, and we need to take these all down to, let's say, 50. We can select all of these limits by checking the checkbox. As I scroll down, I can modify that max position family and modify that max position product both to 50. As I click Save Changes, that will be pushed out to those limits on those particular accounts, and you can see that is now reflected here on the max position product and max position family columns. Okay. Now, if we wanted to add a new limit altogether, we could certainly do so as well. So as I click New Limit at the top, what limit are you trying to add? We'll be looking to add an account limit. So I will click Continue. And again, we'll say 35 for the family and product in this particular case, and we will need to specify a particular product or instrument. So in this case, I'll say ICE, and I will say BRN future. Again, not specifying the contract, as we don't want to roll a contract every month. As I click Update, that's going to specify or lock in our particular product that we are going to be setting this limit for. And then we have already set our max position family and so forth. We'll also set our trading allowed and our max click size to 10. Now we can click that. And then on the upper right, we'll need to add a particular account. So MR test in this case. We can do account 1, 2, and 3. And as I hit select, you can see the accounts that this will be applied to. I can click create. And then as that updates, there we go. And then as that updates, we can see that back in our search window here, we can see for MR test 1, MR test 2, and MR test 3, we've got the 35 quantity limits for the family and for the product for Brent on ICE for the particular accounts in question. All right. Now, using that same functionality, if all of a sudden those same 3 no longer need to trade Brent, or better yet, if they no longer trade the S&P, we can select those particular limits and click delete. We will get a warning that we are reducing the limits that these 2 accounts have. So just to state the security pop-up there, we can go ahead and click delete if we are sure we want to remove them, and then they will be removed accordingly. And then finally, we did show the new limit and then applying that new limit with the 3 limits for Brent crude. However, if we just had a single line item here like CL, we already have an existing limit for this particular product and so forth. We can also just select that and use that copy feature. And again, using our list of test accounts, we can then apply that to whichever accounts we need. And as we hit select, it will then update and apply that limit to those various accounts. In that case, there's already one on account number 7, so no worries there. So if we again go back and do a limit search, we can select an account. Again, let's go with MR test. We can select all of our accounts in this case. Hit OK. And in this case, we can see all the limits on our 8 accounts. So we have crude oil and Brent on account 1, WTI and Brent on account 2, 3 has Brent, and then 4 through 8 all have WTI. Okay, so next up we would like to talk about product margin. So in the previous webinar, we did talk about how on a particular account, in this case, again, our parent account, on the SOD credit tab, that as we scroll down, we do have this credit settings section. Now from here, what we're able to do is check the check credit checkbox, and this is going to check the trade that you place against the current P&L and the margin charged for your current position. In this case, we can have our balance or our daily limit, and we can say define that with whatever value and then currency. And with this box checked, every order that goes through, it would then check to see if the P&L has, well, the P&L plus the margin, if that value violates this $10,000 limit. So if you're placing a 1-lot contract and that margin is $8,000 and you have no P&L so far for the day, it's your first trade, then that order would go through. Now, if you have lost $3,000 on the day, and again, that margin for that 1 lot is still $8,000, you would now be in violation, and then this would reject that new order. So the question here is, where does that margin value come from, and how do we go about defining it? Obviously, it comes from within the system. We will define that here by going on the left side under company settings. We hit that drop down, and then we can click on product margin. And what we will have here is going to be a list of all the exchanges that we have access to. Okay, so if we go to CME, we will see that we have a product margin field, and this will load up. This is going to load up all the products that we have loaded into the system. So we can see going left to right, exchange, product type, product, the alias for that product or the name, then the margin, currency, and whether that is active. So some products will load in and then they might become inactive. That's basically what that checkbox is there for. So for the product, if we were going to look at the S&P future, we can hit the drop down here for our filter. I can type in ES and I can check the box for the ES contract. And as I click OK, that will then show the futures and the spreads, the options and the strategies, and how much margin we are looking to place. So in this case, the first line is going to be the futures contract. It's currently showing 8,000. The currency is in USD. If I scroll down, I see those same fields. I can modify them in either location, and then I could save that change. So if I want to change this to 9,000, Save Changes button will become available, and I can then click Save Changes. Now, one other thing to note on the outrights for these particular margin limits, if we are going into accounts, we are also able to modify this in one other way. So if we are going into, my user, and I'm going to go into my account, and we are on a limit. Now, if I added a limit for CME and ES, future, ES will be the product. Now, I have that line item for that S&P contract. Now, limits, as far as we've discussed, are purely quantity-based. However, what we're also able to have a look at here is, if we scroll down here, if I look at the outright section here, I would have to check the trading allowed button, and I would set some kind of max order quantity, in this case, let's say 10. But we also have this applied margin percentage. So on the limits, we are actually able to take that $8,000 or $9,000 limit that we have on the S&P contract, and we can then modify it. So by default, this will be at 100. So 8,000 is 8,000. But if we wanted to reduce it to 75%, we could certainly do so. And then that 8,000 would become 6,000 if we were to save that change. So even though we can, we're hard setting that margin limit at the entire company level, we can further go in and make more modifications at a more detailed level. Again, this is from within the accounts, on the limits, and on the specific limits line, in this case for the S&P 500. Okay. Now, going back to the product margin, if we go to, we'll go to ASX in this case. Again, same kind of setup, just a different exchange. However, on the inner product margins, we're also able to set a reduction or a discount for particular products. So on the ASX, there is the YT and the XT strategy or spread. And in this case, they are traded in a 3-to-1 basis. So this has already been configured for us in this particular case. However, if we scroll down here, we can actually look at the configuration. So what we're seeing is the YT and the XT as the two contracts here. And then we can see that the ratio that we have pre-set up here was ratio A of 3 and ratio B of 1. What we're really configuring here, and then obviously it's followed by discount percentage of 70. So what we're configuring here is the ability to place this trade, and then once we have that position on, we are able to reduce our margin charges when the ratio is in place. So just to pull up a workspace real quick, this is the actual product. And you'll notice that the contract name, within the contract name itself here, says 30 YTs minus 10 XTs. So it trades as a single product. So if I were to buy one, I would be buying 30 and selling 10. And then as soon as that position is on, we would then apply that discount within the risk system within TT to reduce that margin by 70%, and then we would continue to calculate margin for any outrights beyond that at the regular rate. So it would specify that that 3-to-1 ratio is in place, and then make those reductions accordingly. You will notice it's kind of in a light gray here. The outright margins for each one of these products is displayed as well. So for the YT, it is a margin of 610, and for the XT, it is a margin of 3,000. Again, with that ratio in place, it would then reduce that margin accordingly. Now, if we go back to the product margin, or we just look at the product margin tab here, we'll notice there is a very long list of products. And again, going in there and manually entering these values in is not terribly efficient. So generally speaking, a lot of the exchanges will, can provide a file of the products that they are going to have, and then this file can be somewhat modified so that we can upload it directly into TT, and then hopefully save some time in making those modifications in case there are any changes by the exchange on their margin rates. So that's going to take us into our next section here, which is going to be data uploads and auto uploads. Let's go over to the data uploads selection on the far left side here. So again, under company settings, just below product margin, we're going to see data uploads. And the data uploads and auto uploads pages provides you with an interface really for manually or automatically uploading data files directly into setup for your users and accounts and so forth. So we'll walk through how to do this manually, how to create the file, and how to have that process automated. And again, kind of the use case is that you might have a back office process or middle office process that eventually will give you a reconciliation of a position on an account or perhaps an account balance. So once that is done for multiple accounts, that can then generate a file. And what we're able to do here is specify how that file needs to be created as far as the format goes. And then if that is generated at a specific time, we can then automate the upload. So it can grab that file that comes from the back office process, grab that file and then upload it so we have updated balances or start of date positions or whatever it may be that we need to update. So what TT allows us to do is construct those files, whether it be for the margins, for the balances or credit of the accounts and the start of date positions, then upload them to make the change in mass rather than going in and modifying each specific margin or account balance. So since we were just talking about margin, we'll start with the margin file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab over to the Trading Technologies website again here. And again, at the top, we have resources and we have the documentation. We can go into, we could use the search at the top here, but in the help library, we can enter a search term and we will go margin file in this case. And we'll see for our results, we're going to get uploading a product margin file. And this is going to be the documentation for the process that we're literally going to walk through here in a moment. And then we have the file layouts. So I'm going to go with the file layouts. And on this page, we're going to see the layouts for the margin file, credit file, and the start of day. So I'm going to scroll down here. We'll come back and touch on a few of these other layouts in a moment. But down at the bottom, we will see the margin file layout. And what we can see here is it is a CSV format that we need to follow. And our fields are going to be the exchange, the product type, the product, the margin, and the currency. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab an Excel file. And as I open up Excel, and you could do this certainly in a text editor as well, but I'm going to use Excel for this one. And what we can do is we can build this out. So in this case, we can say CME, it's going to be our exchange. Our product type will be a futures contract. The product will do ES. We will set our margin value to 2,500. And our currency will be USD. And then I'm going to copy and paste that again. And let's do crude oil as well. All right, so we'll do both of these contracts at 2,500. Now, again, this does need to be strictly in CSV format, and I do need to have that .csv extension on there. So when in Excel at least, when I go to save this, I can go to File and Save As. I'm going to name this Upload Margin File, and our extension for Excel probably defaults to Excel Workbook, but I'm going to be going with the CSV option here that has the .csv ending, so that TT can recognize that file, know that it's in the somewhat of the proper format, and then begin that process. So with that, we can go ahead and save, and move that off here for a moment. Now, if we go back to setup, I can go to that product margin, and let's just get these two products in focus here. So if I go to the product margin under CME, it's going to load up. Let's get the products ES and CL in view. Okay, so we'll see the futures, we'll see the spreads and the options for CL and ES. So really we're targeting this $8,000 and this $9,000 amount for the margin. Now, if we go back to our data uploads, what we can do is we can go to new uploads at the top, and at the top we will select the file type, and in this case we're looking for the product margin, so this will be the product margin file. We do need to specify the format. Again, for this particular, for the margin file, it is only available in a CSV format. We'll show in a moment that has a few other formats. And now I just need to, again, this is the manual process, so I need to specify the exact file and where to go to get this particular file. So we have the upload margin file. I've got this down on my desktop, so I can go ahead and I can open that. And now if I click upload, this is going to kick off that process to upload this file. So I will click there, and we can see at the top of our display here, we do have a status pending and success. There we go. It's a pretty small file, only 2 lines. So if we click on that particular line, we will see there is some more information down below. We will see that the rows process, just the 2 rows, which lines up with what we set up in our file here. So one for ES, one for CL. And then no uploading errors to report here, so all is well. And now we can just go back to the product margins. Again, we are already set for CME. And let me again pull up ES and CL. There we go. And now we can see that the margin has been changed from 8,000 and 9,000, I believe we had, to 2,500 and 2,500, which lines up with our sheet. So everything worked out well there. So next we'll do a credit file or an account file, account balance file. So first we'll go back to our file layouts documentation here. We just did the margin file, so we're actually going to scroll up a little bit here, go up to the top, and we will see account credit file layouts. Now there's a few different file formats that we support here. We do have CME, GMI, Ralph and Nolan. For our example today, we'll use a CSV. It's kind of from my experience, it's the most commonly used. However, as we scroll down, the documentation, the lining of things up will be the same. However, obviously with GMI, there's a number of additional fields here, as well as with Ralph and Nolan, so it's a bit more complex. But for the CSV format that we're going to use, again, we're going to pull up a Excel sheet here. Let's get this up on screen. And we will notice that, again, the CSV format is going to be very simplistic. So we've got the account, we've got the balance, the credit amount, and then the currency. So in Excel, it's a little bit bigger for us here. It's simple 1, 2, and 3. So we have the test accounts that we used a moment ago. We'll do account 1, and we can say 5,000 USD, and we'll just copy and paste this a few times. So we'll do for account 1, 2, and 3. Change that to 10,000 and 15,000. Okay. Now again, CSV and saving it in the proper format is important. So if I go to File and Save As, we'll be calling this the upload credit file. And again, it's probably going to default to Excel workbook. I'm going to need to select that CSV option a few down here with the .csv ending, and I can then save that file. And I would point out, again, this can be done also in a text editor if that's what you prefer. So after I save that, we can also view this. Let's pull this up here. So this will just be a notepad, but just so that you are aware, in CSV format, it's just going to look like this. So we're going to have that CSV comma showing up in the proper place there. So really, this can be built out, not just in Excel, but in those text editors as well. Okay. Now going back to the setup portion, my setup tab here, I can go to our accounts, and actually I'm going to go to users just because I know the accounts are tied to my user here. And now we're going to be uploading the balance for account 1, 2, and 3 in this case. So if I go into account 1, I can go to the SOD credit tab, and as I scroll down, again, credit settings, and currently we have no limit or balance set for this particular account. We can see that on all 3 of these accounts. So blank, blank, and blank. There we go. So we can go to data uploads, and again, I'm going to click new upload. I'm going to hit the drop down here and select the, there we go, account credit. And in our file format drop down, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing CSV. I will select choose file and upload credit file in this case, and then click upload. Again, should be a quick process here, status pending, and there we go, success. So rows processed, showing 3. Now if I go back to those accounts, start with account 1, should be 5,000 here. Oops, I'm on the wrong tab. Account 1, SOD credit tab. Now as we scroll down, you can see 5,000. Go to account 2, I can see 10,000, and account 3 for 15,000. All right, so obviously if there's the more accounts that there are, the more time this is going to save. So a good feature to keep in mind here. Okay, so finally, we also want to do an SOD file upload as well. The SOD file is going to be, certainly relevant in the sense that, if a trader is, placing trades through the front end, TT is certainly able to track those positions from one session to the next. So if on the specific account, in this case our MR Test 1 account, on the SOD credit tab, there is the checkbox here for create start of day records. Okay, so that means that at the end of the trading session, the net position for a specific instrument will become the start of day position for the next session. So the net position becomes the start of day value or quantity, and then that net position is rolled from one session to the next. Now those trades have to be done within TT in order for that position to roll correctly. So if they are trading on the screen, that's all great. However, if they were to call in a trade and that trade were to be placed in some other manner off of TT or not on their account, there would need to be some kind of reconciliation so that the start of day record is accurate and includes both the trades placed by the user on the screen and includes any trades that were placed by calling in a broker or something like that. Okay. So let's go back to data uploads here. And one last time at our file layouts page here, if I scroll down, we then have the SOD file layout. So SOD position, CSV, and GMI file must contain the following fields. So we'll have the account, the instrument, the quantity, and the price. And for the instrument specifically, we are going to have to find an instrument ID. Now, the instrument ID can be located by pulling up the limit and locating the instrument ID from the new limit window. The instrument ID is really a numeric value that we use within TT, as we kind of have to index all of these instruments from all the various exchanges. So within setup, if I were to go to an account and the limits, let's say we wanted to find out the front month of the crude oil contract, I can click on add. I could click on, let's say, CME, CL, future, CL. And if I click on CL June 24 under the instruments column here, you'll notice there is a bit of data here for that particular instrument. So obviously CME, CL, future, full name, expiration, product ID, and instrument ID. So it's this value in particular that we are going to be concerned with as we look to upload these products. Now, this is one way to go about locating those values. I would also point out that if we were to pull up a workspace, what we can also do is go to the search at the top. If I'm looking for crude oil or if I'm looking for the S&P, I can open up a market grid, and it will have the regular bid and ask and the regular columns that we have on by default. But if I right-click on those column headers, I can click Edit Columns. And if I scroll down towards the end here, we will see the instrument, there we go, instrument ID column as well. So if there's a long list of instrument IDs that I need, I can use this column to, let's say, click and drag to select a number of rows, and then I can Control-C, Control-V to copy paste that into Excel or wherever I'm going to track those instrument IDs. All right, so we'll actually do a position on this ES June 24 and modify that SOD position, which we will come back and see in the positions widget in just a moment. Okay, so we'll go over to the accounts and the limits, and again, we'll do add, CME, we'll go with ES. Probably should have grabbed this a moment ago. ES and the June 24 contract. I'm going to Control-C, so I'm selecting this instrument ID. I'm using Control-C in this case, where I could right-click into a copy. And as I go back to our Excel sheet, I can then paste that value and set my quantity and price. So I'll say 30. And I'm actually going to leave the price field blank. It's worth noting here, for the SODs, when that process occurs that I mentioned before, that startup day record is going to be marked to the settlement price. So we do have the option in this case to not enter in a price for the SOD, and then it will just default to the settlement price. So we'll actually go with that in this case. Now, one other thing to note is going to be this scientific notation that comes up in Excel. This wouldn't really be an issue in the text editor that I found, but when you paste values, long numeric values into Excel, it does have a tendency to change. So you'll notice we're ending 40155 in this case, whereas in our file, we're showing 450s or something like that. What we're able to do here, if you place an apostrophe in there, and then you paste, it will actually retain that value. So kind of something to keep in mind if you're going to be doing this in Excel specifically. Obviously, this is probably more towards the manual process. If you're building this from an automated process from the back office, you would likely go into some kind of a text field or a text editor. But nevertheless, if you're manually building this out, something to keep in mind. It will not find that other value, as that was not a valid value within TT. So I'm going to change this to our 3 accounts here that we've been using, and we'll do S&P on all 3 of these. Let's say 30, 35, and 40. And with that, again, file and save as. Again, in this case, we'll name this upload SOD file, and we have changed it from the Excel workbook to the CSV file, and then we can save that. We can save that particular file. And as we go back, data uploads, new upload, startup day records is going to be the name of the file. select file format, again, CSV as we've discussed, and we'll choose the file. Again, this will be the upload SOD file. And as I open, I can upload, kick off that process. Start of day record, status is pending, and processing. Success. Okay. 3 rows processed as we would expect. Upload errors, none. And actually, if we go back to our workspace that we had up a moment ago, we can actually see the results of this upload as well. So it is worth noting, a couple moments ago, I think I had a 5 lot. That was the SOD on the MR Test 1 account. You'll notice that is now 30. So it was not to add or to subtract from the SOD quantity. We are simply stating this is the new value. So we have stated that it is 30 lot on test account 1. It is 35, an SOD of 35 on test account 2, and a quantity of 40 on test account 3. All right, finally, we do want to touch on the auto uploads feature that we have here as well. So again, under company settings at auto uploads on the far left, you can see that we do have a single automated upload already scheduled here, but we'll walk through creating a new one altogether. So as a company admin, you can use the auto uploads tab to schedule reoccurring automated data file uploads. The uploads can be scheduled on a daily basis at a specific time that best suits your company's needs. Again, thinking about that back office process with the reconciliation that would could generate a file, and then you can schedule that upload on TT. So if we set up a new upload, we're going to have a number of fields here that we will need to populate. So in this case, the name here is going to be the actual name of the upload process. It's not the name of the actual file. We would enable that this particular process. We then have to specify a protocol, either SFTP, HTTPS, and we would also have to come up with a server and port and path on that server for that particular, the location of that particular file. Assuming that there is a username and password that is needed, we would have to enter that here in the username and password field. And then finally, we would have to specify the name of the file that's being uploaded. There's a blue link here on the right for options in case we need to specify any values that would be going in there as far as day, month, year, and so forth. And then once we have that entered in, we can specify the time. It will be in UTC, and we have a field here for retry for a set number of minutes. This is going to set how long to wait before retrying the upload. So in this case, you can see kind of in a lighter text here, please use a retry time of 10 to 180 minutes in 10-minute increments. So you can specify if the upload fails for some reason, that this will then go ahead and retry after that fixed amount of time. Obviously, days to run, this is going to be the days of the week that we can set for that automation to run. Sunday and Saturday are probably not going to be used all that often, so we do have that option available to you. And then we will have to specify that file type and the file format, just like we were doing a moment ago. So if we're doing a account credit file and in CSV format, we can set those in those fields as well. As far as this final checkbox goes for continue on air, when this option is checked, setup stops logging after 20 errors but continues to upload the file. When it is unchecked, setup stops uploading data once it logs 20 errors. So this is your option to check or uncheck depending on what you prefer. So once those are filled out, go ahead and save those changes, and then that auto upload will be scheduled accordingly. All right, everyone. Thanks to everybody who joined. There was quite a bit of information that we covered there. So if anyone is looking to discuss any of these topics or any other TT-related topic, feel free to reach out to us via the email address on screen here. It's training-ux@tradingtechnologies.com, and then we'll work with you to schedule a call and, like I said, discuss any of these topics if we need to do so. Thanks again for everyone who joined. We look forward to speaking with you again. Take care. Bye-bye.